Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy Thursday. First of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your Thursday afternoon / maybe early evening for some of y'all. If you're on here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think may find it interesting. Again, hand clap to all of you guys who are here hanging out with me. I really do appreciate it. Hey, Eugene, what's going on? So I'm pretty excited about today's conversation. This is something that I want to continue to address, I think, moving forward. Many of y'all know that, mental health issues, emotional issues, all of that, it's real. It is real. And there are a lot of women out there who I just think are just struggling flat out. I don't know how else to put it. And we don't always like to talk about it. Online, social media, that's a space where people can create their own reality. They can create whatever version of themselves, of their life that they want. But like I said, the downside with that is that at times you're not always getting the real deal. You're not always getting the reality of what's going on. And so, my hope is to create a platform where we can tackle tough topics with truth. We can look at these different situations, address some of these different topics and areas that really are impacting women, so that there's not shame behind it, and so that they can actually have some tools available to make better decisions or to know how to move forward. So unfortunately, it seems that some of the more helpful topics, the topics that I think are constructive and could really be useful, they're not always as popular, but that's okay. I do think this is something that we need to continue to address. And so that's one of the things that I want to do. I'm really excited to have my special guest on here today. She is a dear friend of mine. We've known, I think, 11 years. We were just discussing that before we went live. We've known each other about 11 years. She has a very, she just has a very, very unique story, has a unique perspective. And I think we're gonna have a good conversation. So again, if you like this topic, if you like the show, if you just want to show support in general, hit the like button, share it with anybody who you think may find it interesting. And again, we're going to talk about some really good, some real stuff. So get ready, and let me bring on my lovely friend.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Wonderfully. I'm so excited. I am. This is now.
Yeah.
Well, enjoy each other, and I'm excited to talk about all the things you want.
Yes. So I do have a few people in the comments asking who is the special guest. So before we get into the topic, can you mind sharing a little bit just about who you are, your platform? Y'all, I do have her information, her social media information in the description box. So if you want to follow her, check her out. Make sure to do so after this live. Make sure to check out her Instagram and her TikTok. And yes, let us know a little bit more about yourself.
Oh my goodness. I want to first, if I can, share a story about how we met.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was going to San State in California at the time for college. And I would drive all the way to Pleasanton to meet up with the people, one of them being per day. And we would then go out to San Francisco and minister to the homeless out there.
Mhm.
We have stories to tell about that. But that's how I met her. I just fell in love with who she is, what she carries, and I've met other dear from her. And we've been a lot together. Moving forward.
Hey, so it does look like you're still cutting out a little bit. I'm wondering if let's see if we can try something. It may be a connection thing. I'm not sure if there's a way maybe you can move a little bit closer.
Sure.
But it is cutting out a little bit, y'all. This is standard operating procedure. I always say if there's not a little bit of struggle in the stream, then it's not a real good stream. So so yeah, we're gonna try to make it work. What's up, Snugs? I see Snugs in the building. I want to give a shout out to Snugs. Also to Try Baby 23. Everybody here hanging out with me today on this lovely Thursday afternoon. So yeah, I remember we met at the homeless what was it? I don't remember what it was called. I think it was Night Strike. It was like some ministry that was dedicated just trying to help the homeless population out here since it is pretty big in the Bay Area. So that was dope. And ever since then we've stayed connected. So you gotta thank God for long-term friendships, because this is, it's hard to come by real people that you can connect with on a deeper level. So when you find them, you keep them close to you. So again, so I'm really excited about today's, maybe tonight for you, a topic, because again, I feel like this is something we need to address. There's a lot of women out there who are struggling, who are going through different seasons or find themselves in different situations that are really hard to manage. And it can be scary. It can be sometimes shameful to talk about some of these different things or to express it or to have a place to address it. So, again, my goal, if nothing else, is to really, really address some of those things, address some of those common pitfalls that I think modern women today do struggle with, in hopes that they can maybe find some different ways of coping and find different ways of making better decisions, So again, I appreciate you being here and just appreciate you sharing your perspective.
How's the background? Do we have background issues still?
No, I think we're good. We'll continue we'll make it work. So I want to get right into the topic. So we're going to be talking about toxic women, if you will, or I think different behaviors that we as women do that can be toxic. And this, honestly, this isn't just pertaining to women. Like, there's men who can do this stuff too, but I want to focus on women because that's my target audience here. But so I want to talk about that and these self-defeating behaviors that hinder us, different things that we do that impact our lives, for better or for worse. And so one of the first questions that I want to ask, it's this kind of age-old question of, why do good girls choose bad boys?
Okay, that was so much feedback. All I heard was bad boys. So I think
we're really?
Why do women choose bad boys question?
Yes. Why do good girls choose bad boys?
Oh my goodness. It's a very multi-dimensional type of question. You can't just say, what color is that car? It's blue. Like, girls pick bad boys, not every girl, not every woman, but I think out of, number one, society pictures the bad boy as like the Western cowboy, the guy on the motorcycle. I mean, they paint them almost like this Prince Charming. And so women naturally gravitate towards something that's mysterious, something intriguing. Hence, side note, there's the whole romantic novel, Hallmark Channel. I'm not hating on it, but they prey on women's heart emotions, and they use it in a way just for women. And I think that bad boys kind of have that intrigue, that mystery of like, you meet a bad boy, you're going to have an adventurous life, you're going to go jet setting, you're just going to have this really cool, exotic life. Well, that's not always the case. I mean, usually bad boys, you have issues with alcohol, drugs, you name it. Not every bad boy, but that's kind of the general rule, and then like you look at the stable boy, you're like the family man. What does that equal? That equals boredom. That equals a boring life. That's kind of my opinion on it.
A boring life. So, and you know what? It's funny because I had a stream a few days ago where I basically talked about this, right? Where it was like, we were talking a lot specifically about like the Black culture, but I was like, this is something that I see all across the board. And I think at the end of the day, there's just certain women out there, many of us, where it's like you want that excitement, you want that passion, you want that flair. And for so many of us, we saw that associated with a certain kind of masculinity, which tends to be what is unhealthy.
Yes.
And I'm like, it usually, I think when women start to get maybe a little bit older, or they've gone through life, experienced certain things, then sometimes they can be like, hey, you know what? No, stable is really sexy, or the good guy is that, oh, that's attractive. But at that point, sometimes, then it's another issue, because it's like that good guy may have been married by now, or now he's not interested. He's like, hey, you didn't want me when you were younger. And so there's like another set of issues. But I think at the end of the day, you're right. There's just certain girls, for whatever reason, they see healthy, stable men as boring. And I think honestly that has more to do with maybe toxic elements of a female or woman's thinking. Like I said, if she maybe grew up in an environment of chaos, or she was used to unhealthy relationships, then she's going to seek that out, So, but I think you hit the nail on the head there.
That being said, made the point out. I know in my lifetime, in my past, I did have I didn't even introduce kind of my intro, but I had a very traumatic childhood. I mean, so for me, what I saw in my immediate family was abuse. And so I know for me, myself, I unknowingly just went towards men that had that characteristic, that had obviously that spirit living in them. Yeah, that's
yeah. So to you, you're saying you specifically was like, because you grew up in an abusive environment, that basically
like
that influenced your decision making as as a grown woman, and what you sought after.
Yeah, and you don't, like, when you're first and you're doing the interacting things, you don't necessarily notice that you have these from obviously trauma, from abuse and everything. It's not until you start getting deeper into your healing and you're like, okay, that's a pattern. That is something I used to seek out, because trauma was normal and comfortable for me.
Right.
And if you live a lifetime of always being in that trauma mode, you have adrenaline in your body, and it's literally hard for you to relax, calm down, etc. It's like you go. You're in that fight or flight. And for me, I'm not a fighter, I'm a flighter. So But
I love you, but yeah, I know. Yeah, so that you make a good point. So you're saying the adrenaline of living in an environment of chaos, that it trained you, because when when we're kids, we're being developed a certain kind of way as women, as kids, like we're being developed. And so if you're developed in an environment that's unstable, you're basically constantly in a fight or flight survival kind of dynamic. And so now that you're older, even if you're not in that exact situation, your brain has been trained, and you have been taught how to operate that way. So then you seek out partners, you seek out people, you seek out relationships that are going to keep you operating in that fight or flight kind of response, because that's what you were trained to do.
And also, and add to that, it is in a way that we were trained to do it, but we physically have brain alterations. Before the age of 3, our brains, every human's brain is very plastic. They call it's plasticity. It's able to mold, develop, etc. You can heal. So you see trauma, normal trauma. You actually have neural pathways in your brain that are forever altered. You literally have, I wouldn't someone say it's, brain damage, but you literally do not have normal neural pathways where, you're able to distinguish, hey, this is not normal. Like for that kind of myself, like I do have like adverse side effects. I have PTSD. It's not that it's not comfortable. It's just I'm sure that I'm not putting myself in certain situations that sometimes trigger it.
Right. Okay. So we are still having a little bit of a choppy. Yeah. I'm wondering, is there like a?
Do you want me?
What'd you say? Yeah, because you cut out right there.
It's doing it.
Yeah, it was fine before. I'm wondering. Is there like do you have a headset maybe, or because I'm wondering if it's like the internet.
There, does that sound? I turned off the mic, back on.
No, it's like it'll for some reason it's like chopping off every word. I don't know what that's about.
Do you want to try? You want to try? Just start
Yeah, you just cut. It's so weird. You just shut off. It just cut off again. Sorry, y'all. Bear with me. It could, like I said, it could be the Wi-Fi, or it could be, you know, how there's certain aspects in the place where it gets a little. It can get a little. You can have a bad spot and else to put it.
I can try. You want me to try my bedroom?
Yeah, let's see if maybe that's a little better. If you need to,
let me take my water.
Stop the cam for a sec. We can.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
Let me put some lights on. Another room.
Wi-Fi that's a real thing.
Well, you know where I live.
Right. So
we're not in Kansas anymore.
Right. So
okay, so how is it over here?
Struggle streaming already. Like I said, it's not, like I said, y'all already know, it's not a real good stream unless there's a little bit of struggle in it. So this is all a part of the game plan. So shout out for the struggle stream. Also want to give a special shout out to Dane C with the 5 on the super chat. Much appreciated. And again, y'all, if you're here, please get those likes up, tag anybody on this discussion, or share with somebody who think may find it interesting. I'm just having a good conversation with a friend of mine about just self-defeating behaviors. We're having a candid talk about some of the different things that, you know, us women do that can essentially be destructive. And like I said, she has a very interesting, a very unique perspective to bring because of her past, because of the different things that she's been overcome. So I'm grateful to have her here with me just to hang out and to share her perspective. And we're trying to find the best spot to continue.
I feel like standing right here and holding my laptop is like
girl,
really standing. Okay, so I guess I have to stand for this. So let me put my laptop with my knee here.
Y'all, thank you for bearing me. Shout out to Philip for the support. Always showing love and support. Like I said, it's not a real stream if there's not a little bit of struggle in there. Okay. At least for now. I think once I get to the point where there's like this is why they have producers. Now I'm understanding, like, this is why, you know, there are people out there who are producers. They handle all this kind of stuff, but it's all good.
Okay. Is this good?
Okay, right now it sounds good. So let's try this and we'll adjust if we need to.
Yes.
All right. So we basically just talked about, you know, in your opinion, why good girls choose bad boys. You talked about how in your particular scenario, because you grew up, you had a lot of abuse in your background, abuse of all kinds, that influenced your decision-making moving forward. And again, I was expressing, for many of us, whether we know it or not, you know, we are shaped by our past, whether good or bad. So if we did grow up around unhealthy people or with unhealthy dynamics, if we don't address those things, then we continue to recreate those scenarios in our lifetime. And just with some of the different people that I have seen online, even the different discussions I've had, there's just a lot of traumatized people there's a lot of traumatized women out there. Let's just leave it at that. So like I said, if nothing else, I think these kinds of conversations are good just so that we can have an open space to address the things that are actually impacting and harming women. So on to the next question. So why do you think, and this kind of goes back to your previous question, but why do you think women are drawn to toxic situations, toxic relationships? I mean, what do you think are the different things that a woman will be drawn to something that is bad for her?
Well, I mean, there's like one of my experiences, I had someone do something called love bomb me. So that's really toxic, knowing that it's not normal for a person to say, I love you after 3 dates. Like, that's not normal. Be aware for that stuff. So like that would definitely be a toxic thing to recognize. Just seeing if the partner you're with is like maybe pressuring you for a quicker than you want your pace for a relationship, quicker to move in, anything like that you feel is like going against what your core beliefs are, or that, you know, the Holy Spirit within us, like you can feel, you know, the Holy Spirit when he talks to you. So if you're feeling that prompting in your heart, you should listen. Like, there's a reason for everything.
Like if you're saying if you're sensing a red flag, like something feels unsafe, but you completely ignore that.
And especially like another thing that you could notice too is if they're starting to buy you gifts and things, that doesn't especially when it's right off the bat, that's kind of a red flag for he's trying to buy your affection, trying to manipulate. Those are just like from my experiences, but I mean there's a ton more out there. I know I didn't do research on it, but I know there's a lot of resources out there to find like toxic kind of like these are red flags kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, so you said for you in your life you found that you would get in situations where you'd be love bombed, or a person would basically sweep you off your feet, buying you different things, doing different things to try to gain your trust, but then they would end up manipulating you.
Correct. I mean, and then like with my ex-husband, I noticed with that, I know I'm not supposed to get into details, but
no, well, hey, you can do whatever you want.
I mean, it was a slow progression of separation from family and friends, and then eventually I was taken out of state, and I can't really go into it, but
I hear you.
But definitely isolation. If like you're starting to notice that they're saying comments about your families and your friends, then that's definitely a red flag to look at. Like, why are they being? What is their issue with your mother? What is their issue with your best friend? Like, that's not normal. Like, it really isn't.
Right. No, I hear you. I hear you. If you're on here, please get those likes up. Tag anybody on this discussion who you think might find it interesting. Again, we're having a question about just toxic women and self-defeating behaviors that happen within toxic women. I see a few comments coming in asking some questions. Just to be clear, you guys, my channel is about tackling tough topics with truth. So while I certainly have a lot of topics that are dealing with the Black community, I also have topics that deal with women in general. I have topics that deal with Christianity. I have topics that deal with health and food. So not every single stream that I do is going to address one kind of person. So I want to be clear about that, because I've had different, if you've been following me for almost a year that I've had, you've seen that I've interviewed different people of different ethnic backgrounds, talking about different things. I'm going to continue to do that. So for this one, like I said, we're focusing on health, mental health in particular. And I do want to continue this as a topic, an ongoing topic, along with some of the other things that you guys have seen me address. Relationships, obviously, different things happening within the Black culture, modern women, all of that. So just to give you guys some clarity, that's what is happening. On this platform, we address many different topics because, as you know, people are dynamic and they don't just exist in one atmosphere. They have a lot of different things going on at once. And so I think it's important to address those different areas that do impact us. On to the next question. Okay, so why do you think women are driven to be sexually promiscuous?
Oh, man. That's a multifaceted question as well. I think there's a lot of reasons. I mean, they could have grown up in a very restrictive household where there was a lot of control. Sometimes people find themselves in even really religious households where certain things are taught in a certain way. I think sometimes people grow up and they find out they don't have the same values as their parents.
Fair.
And want to explore that. Sometimes people have friends or even other family members that influence them in certain ways. They may feel pressure from school, friends. I know that, sometimes molestation or sexual abuse, trauma can cause women to become sexually promiscuous. I know, for example, like if, typically if a woman is molested as a young child, I've noticed like talking to other women, typically they'll either turn to using men as a means of like control, almost to gain that control back that was taken from them. Or sometimes they turn to things like prostitution. They turn to things that will numb them, like drugs and other things. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like, if it does come from abuse, it kind of is like, it triggers other behaviors.
Behaviors. So you're saying
Yeah.
women in particular who they experienced abuse in the past, particularly sexually abuse when they were younger, tend to they may be encouraged to move forward, and because of that, look at men and also try to use them to a certain extent as a way to kind of claim what things from them when they're young.
Oh yeah, and and that whole thing about using men, it could be in the form of something like you've probably heard of, like sugar babies, sugar daddies. There are men willing to do that and pay for their sugar babies, but it can be something like that. It can be like women in the escort business, and I'm not saying every single person in there has had that trauma, but like I said, a lot of people I've talked to, this is kind of what I've gotten to feel for. And sometimes they might turn to things like stripping or prostitution or taking pictures and sending them online for money, because they have that, like I said, that control over men. They feel like they've gained that back, and so instead of dealing with like the trauma and the pain and the abuse, like on a spiritual level, they'll turn to something that will kind of mask the pain, kind of numb the pain.
Yeah, it's very rare that I in particular have met women who they've decided to be just completely sexually free, if you will, or have no boundaries on their body, and they grew up in a healthy family household where they had a solid sense of self-esteem. I've never really seen that. Usually if a woman is really, really, really promiscuous, there's somewhere in her life previously where she was hurt. And hurt in such a way to drive her to treat herself lesser than. Anybody who follows me knows that I am not a supporter of the 304 behavior, if you will, because I think it's damaging, and I've yet to see any woman who has done that or who has engaged in that kind of lifestyle and not look back later on and regret it. I've yet to see it. Now, of course, you may have like a Cardi B who's an exception where that's essentially her brand, right? And she gets to make money off of it. But I'm like, we can't look to a superstar as an example of how everybody is living and think that that's okay. She probably still has her own internal mental challenges, as any woman does when they've experienced a lot of abuse there. So
it's working where my pillows are.
Okay, so are you trying to go back and see if that works?
I was starting to shake. I was getting wrist atrophy.
Oh no. Okay, so we'll see, because that the audio there was good, but I don't want you to break an arm while we're talking. I take it this is your first first interview of this kind.
So people are probably watching like, this was a trip. No, this is my first live, and I was so nervous, you guys. My hands are still sweating. Like, this is nasty.
Aww. No, so like I said, we're just having a conversation. So
like that we had on the phone, we're so much better. Got the brain stuff down. I was like, about my book I had read. But anyways.
Okay, so we're going to see if this works, because I hope that, like I said, this was the cutting spot. So, and you know what, like I said, if you get to the point where you want to talk and you need to turn off the cam, that's fine too, because I think we want to make sure we can hear what you're saying.
Okay.
That's, I think, more important. So we can just keep that in mind. Again, if you guys are here, get those likes up. We're just having a conversation. We're just having a conversation about some of the different behaviors, that we, different behaviors that many of us women do face. And I decided to bring my good friend of mine to come on and have this, because she has a very, she's been through a lot of different things, overcome a lot of different things. And if nothing else, we're just here to share perspective. I'm certainly not saying I'm an expert in many of these things, but this is just more than anything about creating a space, because I think sometimes it can be hard for women to express some of these different topics, or feel like they can talk about these things and feel safe or not be judged. So more than anything, we're just, having a conversation so that, women can know, hey, this stuff does happen, this stuff does go on, and still we can try to do better. We have to first start to try to identify what are the different things that are triggering us, what are the different things that are driving us to maybe make wrong decisions. So we discussed earlier that, sexual promiscuity, while there's a lot of different reasons for this, at least in my experience, and also in, your experience, because some of the different things you yourself actually went through, that some of your behaviors were driven by your previous abuse, and that is very common. And so, again, I appreciate you sharing your perspective, and I'm going to move on to the next question. Let's see. Okay. So, let me see the next question. So, what are the different signs that a person can actually notice when they are in a toxic relationship? Like, what are red flags? I know you had mentioned earlier love bombing. What are other different things that a woman can look out for to know, hey, I'm potentially in a situation that is actually unhealthy, and I should maybe exit, or I should at least be cautious about moving forward?
Little things that you should pay attention to right off the bat would be your partner questioning your whereabouts. Where were you? Who were you with? I call them the W's. Who were you with? What were you doing? And that's one thing, questioning your whereabouts. I mean, in a normal adult relationship, that should not even be in the conversation unless it's like emergency type. I mean, you shouldn't daily question your partner. Where were you? Who were you with? Like, that's not normal.
Mm-hmm.
The thing would be your wallet, checking your car, checking your phone, always having their phone on them. I remember an instance where I tried to see someone's cell phone, and if they yell at you or they act defensive, there's probably a reason for it. Other things could be grabbing at you, grabbing your clothing, because usually if they're going to grab at your clothing, the next thing will be grabbing your arm, pulling an arm. Anger, things like slamming a cell phone down, things road rage. This stuff is real, and you may just brush it off at first, but it gets deeper. But those are some of the little red flags, like the more subtle ones, I would say. Well, more subtle, but I mean, like the grabbing of the clothing, the who's, the whatever, because there is different graduation of physical control and manipulation and red flags. There can be things like deflecting on you or trying, or like, don't you mean this? Like, they would be kind of like fill in the blank for you when you're talking. If you're saying like a question or saying a statement like the car is yellow, they might say, don't you mean the car? When they talk to you.
So you are, looks like you are cutting out again.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you hit in a few points again, and again, this is just you share your perspective, different things that you notice, when you're, someone was pulling on your clothes, right? It sounds like you mentioned like control. There is such a thing as like anytime you're in a relationship with somebody, you checking in with them, knowing, okay, I'm going over here, or you giving in the decency of knowing, hey, I'm going over there. Like that's normal. So there's obviously going to be a normal component of checking in, but what you're essentially referring to is just different things of control that you have. That you've mentioned that in your particular life was an indication of like, hey, I should have exited out of the situation, and I didn't.
Mm-hmm, definitely.
Now, I had a few, there's been a few people who have been wondering, and you can feel open to share as little or as much as you want, but would you, I guess, maybe mind sharing some of the different scenarios that you in particular overcame that have taught you some of these different, that essentially taught you some of these different lessons? Because I have the people being like, oh, okay, well, what? So, like, she qualified. I know we had asked earlier, like, to try to get a little bit more sense of just who you are, your background. So, if however much or little you want to share, just so people can get a little sense of like, what are the different challenges that you have walked through where you have now learned some of these different lessons. And again, that's me close.
Just a very quick synopsis of my background. Experienced abuse at a young age, saw abuse on family members. As a family, we were home for a year.
Okay, you're cutting out. Are you in the same area? Sorry about this. I don't want to be
It's a realist, huh? Okay, how's it now? I'm standing.
okay.
Really, I have to stand for this?
No.
It's so funny. The spot is good, I guess. It's over here by the rug. Can you hear me okay?
That, like I said, southern, is it the southern Wi-Fi? What's the?
You know what? This is.
I don't know. I remember the first time I went, I had an interview. I think it was Bernard Riley, and he called it plantation. What do you call it? Plantation.
It's called dial-up, AOL.
Oh my
It's so
God.
slow. Okay, so it's good. So I've overcome a lot of abuse, like in my childhood as an adult, and so I don't want to get too deep into it because it is my story and I'm not being selfish, but if someone wants to genuinely know like more specifics, I'm free to like answer by email or if they want to like chat and ask you to ask me kind of thing, I'm happy to do that. Okay. It's just there's some sensitive things I can't really let out there. And yeah, just for privacy's sake. But I've, through my walk with God, through definitely with supportive family and close friends in my community like Sade and a few others, like you need community to not only get over the physical effects of abuse, but to get through the spiritual and to get through the inner healing that you have to do.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned, so just walking through different kinds of abuse when you were younger, seeing it as a young girl, walking through homelessness and having to manage that. So, okay. And I get it. And like I said, if you guys have any more specific questions or something that,
oh my God,
to find out, I do have the information for her in the description. You can check out her TikTok and her Instagram, or I think she does talk a little bit more about like mental health and different things like that. So.
Oh, okay. I moved to the living room.
Right.
I didn't hear anything but mental health. That whole thing was skipping on my side.
Okay. So let's move on to the next question. So, okay. So you mentioned different ways that just you noticed that, for lack of a better term, a woman's can be in a toxic relationship. Grabbing up the clothes, you mentioned, excessive a need for control. There's, it's one thing to kind of let your partner know, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, know, hey, I'm going here, to have a decent level of respect. But then it's another thing where there's kind of like a paranoia behind everything. There's accusation. So just little things like that. You mentioned love bombing, where you just meet someone and then they just overwhelm you with all these gifts and overwhelm you with all these lovely things. Sometimes that can be a way of trying to, get you into control. So these are just different little signs that can indicate, hey, this is either unhealthy or I should at least take this a little bit slow. What is okay? So let's on to the next question. So we had let's see. Okay, so we had talked a little bit about this, but still kind of want to get your perspective. So what do you say that, speaking a little bit about, I guess, interracial relationships? I know you and I have talked about this and there's some of the different dynamics behind that. Would you say that white men generally make great fathers, husbands, and lovers compared to your experience with other races of men?
I have a very slim perspective on that, so I'm not the best person to ask on that perspective. But I mean, just in general, the general population, just from people I know, I would have to say that question is partially correct and partially not. Again, it has to deal with perspective, where you're located geographically. But speaking from my own perspective, I would say no. And I am multi-ethnic. My background and makeup is multi-ethnic. But yeah, I would say that from my perspective, that answer would be no. I say for the general population, it's partially correct and partially not. It has to go back to, resources. It comes back to who are you around, who you're looking for in a mate. I mean, there's more that goes into picking a partner out than just, the shade of their skin.
Right. So what you said in your particular experience, no, that's No, you can't say, oh, just because I was with, maybe white men in this particular instance, I just avoided all issues. At the end of the day, I've said this over and over again, that you can choose somebody within your ethnic group that's crazy, and you can go outside of your ethnic group or outside of your race and choose somebody who's crazy. It has a lot more to do with what's actually motivating you. So, and I can't, it's like I can't say that enough, because sometimes people like to just think that going over here, you leave your own neighborhood or the grass is greener on the other side. And like I said, if you are not dealing with your own trauma or your own chaos, some of the different things that you mentioned earlier today, you're not going to pick much better, even if you go outside of your ethnic group. So if you're on here, please get those likes up and tag anybody on this discussion. We're just talking about toxic women, different relationship things, different things that impact women in the dating and relationship realm, and all things similar. So on to the next question. Let's see. So then I think you already answered this. Then, so you would never encourage any women to just seek out a guy just because of his race?
Absolutely not. No way. Like, let's just be real. Like, that's pretty shallow. I'm not hating on people, but that's kind of shallow. If all you're, I mean, to each their own. But I think there's more to a partner than, like I said, the color, lack of color, however you want to put it. Money is great, but it can't really buy you true intimacy, love. It helps, but it's not the end of the world. You can be homeless with somebody and feel more love in your heart for them than being in a multi-million-dollar mansion.
Fair point. Now, I know there's a lot of women out there who may disagree, like, I'm being homeless with nobody. I am being homeless with no Dusty. I'm not with this Dusty struggle love. But I hear what you're saying.
You know what, though? But you hear me? I have been homeless a couple of times, and I must say, I have a good perspective on that. I have gone on a couple of dates with multimillionaires, two multimillionaires, and I have a fair perspective, I must say, on that.
Would you mind expounding upon your experiences of homelessness and what it is that you learned in those different times?
Well, I learned definitely not to take things like water for granted. Warmth, you shouldn't take warmth for granted. Your next meal, simple pleasures like your own bed, your pillow. You don't have to roll up stuff. You don't have to pack stuff away. You don't have to hide stuff. I mean, it's just the simple comforts. People take them for granted every day, like a cup of tea, a cup of coffee.
That's so true. It's so true. It's kind of like if you've ever, I don't know, had surgery or you broke something and you didn't know how great it was or how much you needed it until it's not there. So that's essentially you're saying what it can be like if you're, you're in a season of lack, or in a season of trying to find homes. You're just like, when you are stable, that attitude of gratitude really can make a big difference. Being grateful for having a roof over your head, having water, having access to food. There's people out there who don't have that.
Exactly. And I think like when you change the way you look at your life, your situation, if you wake up with an expectant heart, like I wake up every morning and I'm like, I take a minute. I'm like, thank you that I woke up. Thank you that I have air in my lungs. Thank you that I have a warm bed. Like when you say those things, they may sound simple, but when you say them with your full heart intention, you actually start feeling really good for your day. You're like, okay, I can do this day. And it does change your perspective, because either you focus on what you don't have, or you focus on the little things you do have that bring your heart pleasure.
Interesting. And it's interesting that, you saying it's some of those different experiences that kind of helped you foster an attitude of gratitude, if you will, or foster really taking in those moments and being in the present.
I want to share one thing with you about you. So I remember one time, let me see, my daughter is 4. So this had to have been about 5.5 years ago. Sharday came and visited me in my apartment. I was married at the time. And I was working as a teacher at a high school, and he was working at his job. We both were making okay money, but we were still struggling to pay off simple things. I'm talking about we didn't have like electricity at one time. It was struggle. But I remember she came over one time and she just shared a meal with me, and she ended up leaving and she left me a couple of gift cards. And I'm telling you, I always was so grateful for that. And it's one of those things where you understand like how much you are loved as a person. And it was just one of those times where I felt completely loved and accepted from one of my closest friends. And this is how her heart is. She's a great person. She has an amazing heart and she loves to give.
Y'all, I didn't pay for that.
That was freely given.
Hand clap to Angela for the free promotion.
I don't have to promote you.
Fun stuff. No, like I said, when you have friends, you want to keep them close to you.
Yeah.
And everybody goes through hard time. Nobody's life is perfect. That's what I was saying at the beginning of the stream. Social media can be a place where people can construct their own reality that is sometimes actually completely removed from their real reality. So I don't pretend to do everything perfect. I don't pretend to hit everything right. But that's why I think it's good to sometimes, touch upon different things that actually impact people. Because, by the way, there are people right now, maybe even people who are listening or who are hear this, who they are navigating through homelessness. Or they're one step away from that. You know what I mean? Or they're just feeling depressed and they're trying to figure out how am I going to get to the day? Like, what about my life is good? And so, like you said, even in those tough moments, you starting to recognize the gifts that you did have, a gift of a friendship, you know what I mean? Somebody being there for you, being willing to share whatever resources they have, fostering an attitude of gratitude and being thankful for what you do have and not comparing your life to what is fake online. Like, this is when we're not online doing this thing, when we're not on our phones, this is what people are living. We want to make sure that real life is not worse off than this digital fantasy that some of us can create online. So anyways, if you're on here, get those likes up, tag this share. Anybody who you think may find it interesting. We are having a discussion about just toxic behaviors, toxic things that women can, and attitudes that we can embrace that can impact our life negatively, and how to move on from that. So in your opinion, because I think this goes back to a girl, how she's raised, what she learns about herself from her parents when she's younger. That, again, that informs and that is going to impact how she chooses as an adult. Absolutely. So in your opinion, how does growing up without a stable father figure impact a woman as she gets older?
Well, I think, well, first off, my mother did an amazing, phenomenal job. And I have no ill feelings towards anything about my childhood. But that being said, not having a stable father figure was very challenging. You kind of don't know who you are as a little girl. You don't think you have self-worth. You don't think you're beautiful. You think that you are a defect. I remember being a little girl and looking at my best friend at the time, and I would watch how her dad interacted with her, and I would just so long for that. I'd be like, why can't my father love me like that? What is wrong with me? And so you find yourself questioning, and then you just, you take that kind of mindset, which is unhealthy self-talk, and you begin to write a narrative or a script, or you might call it a broken record, and that broken record gets played over like a commercial in your head, which is really our thought life. But with that, you start believing lies about yourself as a little girl, and then that escalates into affects patterns of behavior, and then sometimes seeking attention from father-like figures. And so you just grow up with an unhealthy, I guess, not only an unhealthy kind of identity about yourself, but you also kind of have this inner void of not knowing how a man is supposed to treat a woman. And you don't see how, you don't see that. And so when you do see healthy relationships between men and women, you look at it and you're like, oh, that's how it's supposed to be. Okay. So you kind of have to in a way, you kind of have to piece together what it would be like to have a father. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, no, it does. It does. That makes sense. You have to, because you're not essentially seeing that, you're not experiencing
Yes.
that, which is the best way to be taught as a kid. Is our experiences teach us. Now, when you're older, you kind of have to construct your own idea of what healthy is.
Exactly.
This goes back to
Exactly.
the point I made a few days ago about why I think women can overlook good men.
Oh yeah.
Because, like I said, with the absence of a father and the absence of a strong father figure there that they're in relationship with constantly, or just men from their family that they're in relationship with constantly, strong authority figures. In the absence of that, they kind of have to make it up on their own. And unfortunately, many of us are turning to what we're on now, the YouTubes, social media. We're allowing this digital world to shape our platform. A lot of young women in particular, because that's all they have. Especially if you think of, like, we're in a generation now where, teens, young kids, you see them and they're on their phone. The way people are dating now it's online. The way people are meeting now is online. So it's like online is literally people's world. And so again, that's what's used to construct your idea of what is a healthy relationship, what should a man look like, whatever. That is really going to, I think, lead create some issues, create some voids, especially if you're watching or listening to toxic things, which there's a lot of toxic stuff out there. So I hear you on that one. So on to the next question. Let me see. So what are common self-defeating habits?
Oh yes. This is the one I've been waiting for this one.
Yeah, okay. So what are common self-defeating habits or patterns women have that they should be aware of? Different things that they do to hurt themselves.
Well, one thing is we touched on, it was, self-talk that's unhealthy. But in order to kind of navigate your brain to figure out what's unhealthy, well, some stuff's going to be, it's unhealthy off the bat. The things that you're not quite sure of, you have to practice like critical thinking skills. By that, I mean, you have to be consciously aware of your thoughts that go through your head. Is that thought a good? Is that thought a bad thought? Is that healthy? Is it unhealthy? Is it true? Is it untrue? Once you start, being consciously aware of your thought life, then you can start kind of noticing patterns of thinking or patterns of behaviors that have kind of been, birthed from that. But I think like one way I'm stuttering. I'm nervous. I noticed too, like oftentimes that, if you're thinking on things, like one thing for me is I used to deal with being overweight. And so I would have these kind of toxic thoughts go through my head, like, oh, I'm fat, I'm ugly. And you just kind of play those over and over in your head, which affects your self-esteem, which affects how you feel about yourself. And it just goes on and on. But when you start catching those thoughts and thinking about them, okay, am I fat? No, I mean, I'm not fat. I am. You start taking that lie and you start just speaking the word over it. I'm a beautiful creation. I'm the apple of God's eye. I'm beautifully and wonderfully made. And you start taking those thoughts captive. You start eventually believing the truth about yourself, that you're an amazing being. There's nobody else like Sade in the world. There's nobody else like Angela in the world. We're unique individuals, and we all have a journey to walk through in life, whether it's overcoming addiction, whether it's overcoming negative self-talk, whether it's, overcoming a very hard lifestyle. Like, we all have things that we have gone through, that we are going through, and that we will go through. But I think one of the things you can do is definitely start reflecting on your thought life and asking yourself questions about your thought life.
Now, you mentioned your relationship with God, and would you mind expounding upon that, just for maybe those who are not aware, or those who don't necessarily have a spiritual walk? It sounds like you're saying that, it was your relationship with God. Obviously, that was a thing that has kind of helped you navigate some of those self-defeating thoughts. I just want to make sure. So yeah, would you mind expounding upon that, and essentially how your spiritual walk has and is still helping you overcome some of the different challenges that you had mentioned earlier?
Sure. I am not the I am not the expert to go to for any type of advice, except for I know what it's like to have been a Bible believing Christian and, doing the check. I went to church, check off the box. I sang out of my heart. I clapped at the hymns. Like I was that person at one time. And then there was a season where I wasn't in church and then I went back to church. And so I've always gone in and out, but I have found where I need to belong. And that's with, house church. But my walk with God really, in addition to family and close community friends, like that is what has brought me through abuse. It's brought me through, anxiety that I sometimes have challenges with. It's brought me through PTSD. And, that's what that's my anchor, is my faith in God. God has never forsaken me yet. He may test me out. He may make me wait to the midnight hour for something, but he always comes through. I'm never lonely. I'm never forgotten. I'm never forsaken.
Okay, so you mentioned, throughout your years, you had seasons where you were in church doing whatever the churchy thing was, right? And then you had seasons where you're just like, forget it, I'm just gonna do me. You had seasons where you were kind of in between that, and you've essentially found your solace and your peace and having real, authentic God relationships in your life, and developing your own unique relationship with God. And that's been the thing that is helping you navigate even to this day.
Yes. I mean, like I said, I'm not a perfect person at all. We all mess up, but
You wouldn't be my friend if you were.
Exactly.
You wouldn't. So
our best self, like with God's help, that's what we're supposed to try to do, and expand upon that and show that to others that it is possible. Like honestly, the stuff I have been through in life, I should have been killed or I should have been murdered. One time, 2 times over, I should have OD'd on something. Like I don't know how I'm still here today, but I am, and it's only by the grace of God that I am walking and sharing part of my story on here today.
Yeah. I have a few people who follow me who are, they talk about how they have a relationship with God. They're like, I ain't never going to church again. No, I'm not ever stepping in a building. And, it's interesting because as a Christ follower, as, two women who are committed to that, we can also at the same time look and recognize how some of the different issues and challenges that we had were in fact due and partly because of our relationship with the church. And so now knowing even a part of maturity is navigating and recognizing that, like, hey, not everything that calls himself a church or not every spiritual organization is even really healthy or even worth getting, being involved in.
Oh my gosh, whole nother story. Huh? That's a whole nother story.
No, it is. That's been my own journey. It's like navigating church wounds, if you will, and really finding a group of authentic, God-fearing or spiritually minded people to do life with. Because ultimately, it's like we, the people, are the church, right? People
we are the body. And when you do find that, it is like, it's completely different. You literally, like, it took me some time, but like with Health Church Pastor Janelle and Jabbar, like it took some time, we'll say 9 years, but I finally, the prodigal came home, and it was a great
time. Yeah, she's referring to, we have a, I'll probably link, I'm gonna do that. I'll link to their page.
Yeah.
They're, good friends of ours who they have like a ministry organization, however you want to put it, based out in Texas. But it's very, I don't want to say anti-church. I don't want to use those terms, but it's very countercultural, right? It's more of a community focus. They have, like you mentioned, home groups. They have they'll meet throughout the week to just kind of do life together. And then I think maybe once a month or every other month, whatever, they may meet to have a larger gathering. But it's really more about establishing relationship and discipleship. And then, based upon that, from there, really learning about God together. But they kind of take a different approach. It's definitely not like this, clock in, clock out. So that's, I think, what she's referring to. But
it's not for the faint of heart.
It's definitely not. Well, I do appreciate you hanging out with me and you just sharing your story. Like I said, you guys, if you would like to know a little bit more about her perspective and where she's coming from, you can follow her. I've linked the information to her description box. Oh, I've linked information to her social channels in the description box, so you can check her out. Are there any final thoughts, final words, last things you'd like to leave with the audience or anyone listening in today?
Oh my goodness. I would like to say, if anyone out there is struggling with like self-worth or struggling just in life in general, like, you can reach out. You can reach out to Sade. You can reach out to me. You can email me.
Y'all don't be reaching out to me unless you pay me. No, I'm playing. I'm just playing.
You know what? Your rewards.
Getting all these emails. I'm playing.
But I am excited. This is my first live video, and my heart is really just to encourage people, to inspire people to do better, to be better. We're called to be beautiful people, and we're called to overcome our trauma and to tell our story to others. And I think that, we do need community. We need our friends. We need our family around us. And if you don't have like your support system, find a support system. There's support out there. You just need to look. You need to ask. Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah, totally. Well, I do appreciate you coming and sharing a little bit about your story. I'm sure over time, as your channel grows and as you are able, people who follow you will be able to learn more about your story and more about the things that you've been able to overcome. Like I said, I've had the privilege of walking with you for the last 11 years, so I know a lot of the intimate details, but
marriages,
that'll be revealed in time.
2 babies, girl. We've been through it.
Yes. And like I said, when you find good friends, you want to keep them next to you. Nobody's perfect. Like I said, ain't nobody that I know perfect. Mm-hmm. And if they were, then they wouldn't want to be my friend. So, but yeah, again, I just wanted to, this was the first time that I've had a topic like this. So I do appreciate you coming on. I plan to do more of this in general, just to try to hopefully create a space where we can start to talk about some of the different emotional and mental things that drive women to do what it is that they do, for better or for worse, because it is real. So, planning to talk on a little bit more about narcissism. That's going to be coming up. I've been learning about that, and hopefully would like to get some mental health experts on here too to kind of share their experience. So stay tuned, everyone. But in the meantime, this has been a fun discussion. Definitely check my lovely friend out. Like I said, you can find her on Instagram, also on TikTok, where she gives motivational messages and other things related to mental health, related to women. And yeah, did I miss anything, Angela?
No, I just had a wonderful time, and I just want to apologize to everyone for stuttering and being nervous.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
It was really fun.
Yes. Yeah. First time. So there's a first time for everything. And like I said, it's not a real good stream unless there's not a little bit of struggle in it. So, so we definitely got the struggle. We got that, hit that component. Again, I appreciate all of you guys for being here, for hanging out with me. I do have some content dropping over the next few days that I am excited about. I've been kind of teasing y'all on the community tab, so you should have an idea of what it might be. But definitely stay tuned for other topics and other discussions that you will not want to miss. And again, Angela, I thank you for being here, and I'm sure we'll talk soon, because we always do.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, you have a good one.
Bye, guys.
So, all right, y'all, check her out, her Instagram and her TikTok. It's a newer page, but I know her goal is going to be to help encourage women in particular. She's going to be learning more about her story. So if you do want to learn about her story, as it says, like she has a very unique one, follow her, check her out. You'll learn more. And more than anything, I appreciate those of you who have been here hanging out with me. And I just want to say, God knows I'm not perfect, and God knows that I don't have it all figured out. There's a lot of different things that I'm learning today, but on my own journey, as I'm, seeking to be a better person, a better wife, a better sister, daughter, all of that, I'm constantly challenged to be introspective and make sure that what I'm doing it's from the right motive, it's from the right place, and that I'm just not constantly going through a trauma bond situation. And in my interaction with people online, if I'm just being y'all totally honest, my interaction with people online, I'm seeing that there are a lot of women out there who are just sick. who just don't even know how to have a constructive conversation without getting triggered, or without don't even know how to have a constructive conversation based upon just pure logic. I don't know how else to put it. I'm just like, and we already know, the pandemic, a lot of different things going on. People are struggling mentally, especially because of what's happening in the economy, especially because of what's happening just all across the board, unemployment. Like, there's a lot of different things coming against us, especially coming against women. And I think instead of us creating, having channels that portray a particular image that we're all doing well all the time, or we're leveling up all the time, or we are, divesting to a hypergamous future, most of us aren't doing that. A lot of women out here are still struggling, and they're hoping to do that. Maybe they're creating this fantasy of doing that, but their day-to-day life is not reflective of that fantasy. And so I think it's a lot more helpful and constructive when we can actually deal with what's happening today. That's not to say we can't seek or desire for something better. That's not to say that we can't actually work towards something more desirable, or have our goals or wishes. Yes, we can do that, but we also have to be honest about where we're at today. We're not doing that if we're going to be overlooking like basic truths. You overlook what's that old saying? You got an elephant in the room, like that. You're not doing anything if you look past the elephant in the room. You're not getting anywhere. So, like I said, as far as I'm concerned, on this channel, we tackle tough topics with truth. We talk about what's actually really going on, and my hope is that we do this so that women actually have the tools that they need, or at least encouraged to find the tools that they need to have better results in their life. So, I've mentioned before, I am not perfect, but my spiritual, my emotional walk and health has everything to do with my relationship with God. And that has been crucial to me, and also maintaining relationships with people in my life who are authentic, not perfect, not have it all together, but who are real and honest, and willing to make mistakes and own it, and willing to say, hey, I messed up here, but I'm going to do better. Those are the kind of people that you want to have in your life. And those are the kind of character that I think needs to be encouraged. I think character is oftentimes underlooked. The importance of character is not valued enough. And I'm thinking, what if we had a generation of women that put a higher emphasis on building character? Not to say you don't want to overlook, not saying you want to overlook the looks part. I'm not saying we got to all walk around here looking like nuns. But I'm saying, what if we focused on, okay, yeah, we're going to try to get our bodies healthy. We're going to try to get in the gym. We're going to try to do all these different things. And we're also going to work on our character. How much better would we feel just as women? How much better would we be to our community? And then I think we wouldn't even have time or space to waste our time talking about, all the horrible things Dusties do all the time, because we wouldn't be around them. We wouldn't be around them. I talk about them because obviously that's just for a couple of reasons. I like to put that in my titles, mostly for SEO purposes. But really, really, like I said, I mean, if your entire reality is sort of Dusty, then like I said, that's saying more about you, us as people, us as women, than it's actually saying about the reality of the world. But anyways, I go on a tangent. I do appreciate you guys being here. Like I said, definitely stay tuned for some more upcoming content. I'm excited about a video I have dropping soon. That's going to be talking a little bit about Black love, specifically in response to the false promise of Black love that many of you guys may have heard of from YouTube and Mahogany Pink. That'll be dropping soon, as well as a few other interviews. So definitely stay tuned, and we'll talk later. Bye.